We're here with Robert Farrington. He's the founder of the College Investor, and today we're going to be talking about student loans. Hi, Robert.
Hey, thanks so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
I'm excited to have you here so early in the morning. So tell me, what do you know about student loans? Tell me a little bit about your experience.
Well, I've been helping people get out of student loan debt now for over a decade. I really like to help people pay for college smart so they can avoid student loans. But let's be honest, we're not catching a lot of people trying to navigate this until after they've graduated, they're dealing with their student loan debt, and they're looking for options and help with it. And so I've spent a lot of time helping people get out of student loan debt because I really want to help people start investing and building wealth. But we got to start with conquering that debt first.
That is a very smart idea. So tell me, Robert, how would one get out of student debt? Because I thought you had to pay it. I thought that was it. It was like you were shackled. Is that not the case?
Oh man, it depends. Like just like anything else, right? We can't just have an easy answer here. It depends. And the scary part with student loan debt is that there are over 150 different paths that you can take based on all the various programs and loan types and your own personal situation to get out of student loan debt. And yes, you could just pay them, but at least 50% of all federal student loan holders qualify for some type of student loan forgiveness. Right. And so it might not be total, it might not eliminate everything, but for about 50% of people, there might be something for you out there. And you should never pass up free money. So we should try to figure out how you can maximize these programs so that you can pay as little as possible on your student loan debt and hopefully get some or maybe even all of it forgiven.
That's incredible. Can you give me some examples as to how somebody might be able to get their entire student loan forgiven? Like under what circumstance?
Yeah, totally. So the most popular, quote unquote, best program out there is public service loan forgiveness. Now, you might have seen these headlines, right? That only like 1% of people are getting approved. But honestly, that is the media kind of like inflating something that's really not the case. So the thing with public service loan forgiveness is it's a 10-year program. You work in public service for 10 years and you make 10 years of qualifying payments with the right type of loan and right type of repayment plan. And any balance at the end of 10 years will be totally forgiven, tax-free. The cool thing is public service is very broad, right? So you could work for state, federal, local government. You could be a teacher, a firefighter, first responder. You could be in the military. I mean, and it doesn't matter what you do. You could actually be like an accountant at a school district. And as long as your employer is in public service, you can get that loan forgiven. But just like anything else, there's those three requirements, and you have to do it for 120 payments or 10 years. And so this program didn't even start really until 2009. But if you think about like the logic behind it, you had to get a loan in 2009, then you went to college for 4 years. So you're now in 2013.
Yeah.
Well, what's 10 years after that?
Sure.
2023. So the fact that only 1% of people got their loans forgiven makes sense because the majority of people don't even qualify until now, like this time period that we're recording this in the next few years. And the data shows that 1 million people are on track to get their loans forgiven through this program in the next 4 years. So it's a great program. It really can help people. And it's one of the most popular ones out there.
That's incredible. Actually, I had no idea about this. Famously, I didn't go to school. I just skipped the whole thing altogether. So I didn't have any student loans. But I keep hearing about people graduating with six-figure student loans, and I kind of go, wow, my mortgage is
Yeah, it's tough. I mean, the average student loan debt these days is pushing $30,000. But, on the flip side, there's still about 30 to 35% of graduates that go to college and have no loans. And so you really get, an across the board representation. And again, it's not to say that college is right or wrong. Maybe it's the right fit for some people. According to the data, college graduates do earn more over the course of their lifetimes than non-college graduates on average, right? Historically. And so it could still be a good investment. I think with any investment though, the trick is you never want to borrow more than you're going to get out of it, right? We saw this with the mortgage crisis. We saw this with everything, right? If you borrow too much, it doesn't matter how much you earn, the investment just won't pay off for you.
Sure. I mean, how many philosophy professors can you possibly have? right at the end of the day.
Yeah. Or,
Right?
like, I mean, what's the sad fact that most people don't even go into the field that they got their
That's right.
degree in, right?
Yep.
I was a political science major, and here I am running a website. And, I mean, that story is super common, where people go into one thing and they do something else, they do something else. So,
Sure.
you really have to be mindful of the return on your investment, just like anything else you're going to spend money on.
It's funny you say that, because I know that if I were to do it all over again, I would probably go to law school. But that's only because after 20 years of working with other people, I realized that working in contracts and working with other people on other side and negotiating, that's something that I enjoy doing. But hey, don't get me wrong, I'm happy where I'm at right now.
Nice.
So tell me, I did a little bit of research, and I found that there are 17 states currently that have tuition-free programs.
Yep.
Why would somebody not want to take advantage of that?
Well, that's what's so crazy. So we're having this conversation today, right? Like, should college be free? Well, it already is, like you said, in 17 states. But, a lot of those are community colleges. So they're 2-year schools. But that's a great start. Like, once again, going back to the ROI, return on investment of your education. If you're thinking about, well, I want to be a teacher, that's great. But if you went to a private school, you could spend $80,000, $100,000 to be a teacher. And, like, let's be honest, teachers don't make a whole lot. They make $40,000, $50,000 to start. And, some states, maybe even less than that. Maybe they should make more, right? That's a whole different story. But, like, the facts of today is that's what they make. So if you go out and go to a private school, it's not going to be very fun for you after you graduate. You're going to struggle financially paying that debt. But if you thought about your path to being a teacher and you go to one of these community colleges, knock out your first 2 years of school for free, right? And then maybe transfer to a state school at a low price, you could get your degree and credential and everything to be a teacher for maybe $10,000 or less. Now, when you're going to go be a teacher, that's very affordable, and you can actually thrive financially.
Yeah, that's exactly what I would be looking into for sure. I also found out that if you want to become a lawyer in California, you can do so for free.
There's a lot of but beyond that you can get a lot of scholarships, grants, and then there's law school student loan repayment assistance programs too. So you can get any student loans you get for being a lawyer forgiven. And if you go into public service, you can get that forgiven. So there's a lot of paths there. But on the flip side, for a lawyer, everyone thinks about lawyers like those sitcoms on ABC, right? Where these lawyers make millions of dollars and live in the penthouse suite. Exactly. I think
I know enough of them.
Yeah. And that doesn't happen for a lot of lawyers. And scary fact about law school and lawyers today is, again, there's a lot of lawyers that have been coming out of school in the last decade. And so the going pay for lawyers is down, and the loan amounts are high for a lawyer. Now you can get those forgiven, public service loan forgiveness, law school repayment assistance. A lot of programs exist, but those require you to maybe do work that is very hard on you. Maybe being a public defender or working at a district attorney's office or things like that. And so it's a very catch-22. Like, you need to really research the field you want to go into and determine what that ROI looks like for you. Because, a lot of lawyers don't make it very long being a public defender or being in the ADA's office, because it takes a really big mental toll on your life to see some of the stuff you're going to see and do the work that you're going to do there.
That's good. Yeah, that's something to think about, definitely. So
life is more than money, right? We gotta talk about the emotional burden of everything too, right?
We have to enjoy what we're doing. I'm having a great time with you right now, for example. So, hey, what the heck? So tell me, if you were going to go back to school and you had to get a student loan, what would you say would be, I want to say an amount, but the amount is not correct, because it all depends on how much you'll earn afterwards. So I suppose
you got it
right. So yeah, I'm getting it. So how long then should it take to pay off a student loan?
Well, so first off, if I was going to get a student loan today, student loan should be the last resort. So I think I like to view paying for college as a pie, and there's all these slices of the pie. And the slices could include your savings, maybe your parents' savings if you're in high school. It could be your earnings, right? So like we don't need to dismiss the fact that you can work and go to school at the same time and funnel some of those earnings to pay for your costs, right? You can get scholarships, you can get grants. Then you finally get to the bottom of the pie here, which is like the last few slices, which should be student loans. And then you should only borrow federal first. And then it's a very, very, very last resort, maybe borrow private. Don't go to private unless you have to, because the federal loans are the ones that offer all these great programs: loan forgiveness, repayment assistance, income-based repayment. Private loans, man, they don't offer anything like that. And so that's where people get into a lot of trouble. So how much should you borrow? Oh, go ahead.
Yeah. I was just going to say, and neither of those loans could ever be included in a bankruptcy or anything like that, correct?
Well, that's a myth. Student loans can 100% be included in bankruptcy.
Really?
Today, with no changes to the law, yes. And they are. I see student loans getting forgiven and discharged in bankruptcy all the time. But there's a big asterisk there. And it's not really all the time. It's very certain cases, and it's very rare. But the reason is there's an undue hardship with bankruptcy. So the law says you can get your loans forgiven in bankruptcy if you have an undue hardship. Okay? But when you have federal student loans, the idea of you having an undue hardship is almost non-existent, because if you're disabled or anything, your loans get discharged with disability discharge. If you don't make a lot of money, well, there's income-driven repayment plans, and your monthly payments can legally be as low as $0 a month if you don't make a lot of money. So when the judge looks at your assets and your liabilities, and they see these student loans there, and they say, well, your monthly payments should be zero. Why would I discharge them in bankruptcy? And that's why people don't get their federal student loans forgiven. Private student loans, on the other hand, do get discharged in bankruptcy with some level of frequency. It's not a lot, but again, a lot of those get restructured, and there's different types of bankruptcy. So don't fall for the myth. The big thing that people in Congress, and you hear people talking about, is they want to actually define undue hardship to be a little broader, because when you say undue hardship, and the definition means that you can't pay it. And so that's what they want to define. They want to define exactly what undue hardship means, because when they wrote the law, they left it as that.
Ambiguous.
So it's ambiguous, and it's been interpreted as, well, if you can't afford the monthly payments, and then with federal loans, you can pretty much always afford the monthly payments, or you get your loans discharged. It could be zero if you don't make a lot, right? It could be zero.
However, interest will continue to accrue.
It will, but at the end of these income-driven repayment plans, at the 20-year mark, any remaining balance is forgiven. So again, when we talk about loan forgiveness, let's just say that, life did not pan out for you like you thought it would, right? You graduate, you never got a good job, you kind of bounced around, your income's been low. Well, your payments would be tied to your income, which could be zero if you didn't make a lot. And, yes, the interest accrues, the loan balances accrue, things like that happen. The 20-year mark, so at 42, if you graduate at 22, your loan would just get discharged and be gone forever. And, yeah, exactly. There are options for nobody tells you this stuff. But don't get me wrong, there's a mental and emotional burden for those 20 years. You're trying to pay your debt, you see your loan balance growing. The problem is too, a lot of people get into default, so then they don't make progress to that 20-year mark, because like they give up on their loans. They don't realize these options are there. And so then it goes to collections, and that time period doesn't count to the 20-year mark. And then they get back on track. And, this is what happens. And so this is where you see people that have been like, I've had loans for, 35 years and I haven't made any progress on it. And when you kind of break down the history, it's like, they also haven't, managed their loans and followed up on it and taken care of it. Like, don't get me wrong, I love to bash on the student loan system. Like, there's definitely things wrong with it. There are a lot of problems. The whole thing is messed up in a lot of ways. But on the flip side, we need to have a level of personal responsibility and personal accountability for our own situations. And I think that does get lost a little bit. Like, with these loan forgiveness programs, like if someone was going to cut you a check today for $50,000 or $100,000, like, wouldn't you read the directions and make sure you're checking the boxes? Like, we need to think of it that way and, really follow up on it. And I know it's challenging for some people, but the level of problems we're seeing, I think, get magnified because we don't have as much personal responsibility for these things as we probably should as well.
Do you think that this sort of thing should be taught in school?
100%, I think it should be taught in school. But the hard part is like, we kind of all know we need to teach personal finance and financial literacy every year in school, in my own personal opinion. We should be doing things for first and second graders at their level. And then we should kind of be leveling it up all the way through middle school and high school, because like just trying to do like a personal finance course your senior year of high school, it's not really going to be super helpful. But if you're kind of introducing these topics all the way through and age appropriate levels, I think is a lot more valuable to our young adults today than maybe learning about, trigonometry and things that we probably never learn. Not to say that it's there, but it's like, let's redefine what math looks like in terms of actual practical uses.
Yeah, never learn or never use. I learned it. I never used it, but I learned it.
100%.
Maybe I use it and I don't know. But I don't think I use it.
Exactly. Yeah. And it's like that across the board. So it's like, just what can we do better to, make things better? But, I think that's a whole other conversation as well.
I think as a society, we have to get over this idea that money is a taboo and that we shouldn't be talking about it. Because even myself growing up, we never talked about money. My friends, they never talk about money. It's just it's an uncomfortable topic. And I think that it's got to start there with children.
100%. Yeah. And that's the thing is most people, they don't talk about it. So all the lessons learned basically come through observation, right? So children and families just observe, but you never learn the why. So even if you're in a good household of finances, you might not understand the reasons things are being done or the whys, and then it becomes harder for you to apply them. And then of course, if your parents and family weren't great with money, all you've been observing is that trend as well. And that's what you've learned. And so unless we like really have conversations and talk about it and formalize this, it's really hard to break that cycle. And I mean, we see it all the time. And it's, usually it's when people have, hit the ground or hit the wall and they're looking for answers. And then they finally stumble across things online, maybe, or a podcast or a video or, other influencers like a Dave Ramsey kind of thing. Then they get a light bulb and then hopefully they start changing their ways. But, it becomes really hard at that point in time because you're digging yourself out of a hole instead of kind of setting yourself up correctly from the beginning.
Yeah, I completely agree. It's definitely a challenge, and I hope that it resolves itself over time. We need to be having those discussions, from the beginning, just like we do, other things. So
yep.
That's interesting. So tell me, we were talking earlier about how much time it should take to pay off a student loan, and then we went off on a tangent. So, how much time should it take?
Right. Well, and that's the thing is how much time should it take and how much time does it take?
They're two different things.
We're two different things. So first off, let's talk about how much you should borrow, right?
Yeah.
So my rule of thumb is never borrow more in total than you expect to earn in your first year after graduation.
There you go.
So there you go. Let's put it into practical science, right? Like if you expect to be a teacher, Google it, Glassdoor, teacher salary, my state, right? Like see what they're making. Like Google probably puts it in the box now on top. They don't even make you click a result. And you can see like how much a teacher earns in my state. And that is where I would start. So if you want to be a teacher, maybe it's $40,000. Well, don't borrow more than that to totally pay for everything by the time you're said and done. And that's a good safety range. Now, maybe you want to be like a computer science engineer and you Google like, what's a computer science engineer in California, Silicon Valley earn? And maybe it's like 65,000 is your starting point, right? Well, don't borrow more than 65,000. You have a little more range because those starting salaries are higher. So if we start with that framework, you can definitely be safe. Now, how long should it take you to pay off your student loans? Well, on average, it's pushing over 20 years for people to pay off their student loans. Isn't that scary? I want to say it varies, but like if you add in, it's like 19 years. And if you add in graduate loans, it's like 23 years. It's a long time. Now, when you graduate, you are defaulted into a 10-year repayment plan. That's what you like, the default repayment plan. If you don't make any choices, it's 10 years. And then pretty much every other repayment plan extends that out. You can go out to 25 years on a repayment plan to pay off your loan. So that's where it is. How long should it? You should pay them off as fast as possible. But like, let's be honest. We all go through seasons of life. So I'm a big believer in pick the repayment plan that you can afford today in your season of life. So after graduation, maybe it is one of these longer income-based repayment plans. But then, you get a job, you get on your feet. A year or two down the road, maybe you're making more money. Well, reassess. You can change your plan. You can either pay more to it, pick a different repayment plan. And as you just keep progressing, like just keep assessing, right? Like if we all rewind the clock 5 years ago, we all were in a different financial situation and life situation than we are today. And it might not feel like it today, but if you fast forward the clock 5 years, you're probably going to be in a different life and financial situation as well. So, as you're repaying your debt, keep this like season of life, like realize that, tomorrow is going to be different than today. And, yesterday was different than today. And it helps a little bit, because it can be overwhelming.
Look, I remember my first mortgage. Now I've never had a student loan before, but very similar. And it freaked me out.
And, right? It's hard. It's very scary.
Yeah, because it's such a big number. And thinking in terms of 20 years is like, when you're 22 or 23 years, I think I was 22 years old when I had my first mortgage, and the mortgage was for 25 years. I was going, whoa. Like, I don't even know what 25 years is yet. But
right.
Yeah.
It's crazy. And, you see the statements come and, the interest is accruing. It's a little scary. And, no one tells you, especially when you're 17 or 18 years old, really what you're getting into. I remember when I took out my student loans when I went to school, and I just got an email from the financial aid office. And right, first off, we call student loans financial aid. We don't say they're loans, right? We sell it to you as this is aid to help you. And so you get this email and it says like, congratulations, here's your financial aid award. And you click it, you open it up, you log in, and this today, like you see terms and conditions. So we all just scroll to the bottom, we hit I accept, boom, there's your student loans. And you don't even like really connect the dots. It doesn't like warn you or anything about like you're getting loans and it's going to cost you this much money. Like it's a little scary on how easy it is to get student loans, how little training or education there is around it. And so you really have no expectation about it until you get that first bill after you graduate.
Yeah. Sort of a case of buyer beware. But these are things that, again, they're not really taught in school. Nobody knows to look through those terms and conditions, and they don't really know what they need to do until it's too late.
Exactly.
So on that note, if somebody is struggling with student debt right now, what should they do? What would you suggest they do?
Well, the first thing I always suggest is get organized. Now, this is kind of silly, but most people that are struggling with their student loans, we need to like just think about basic financial organization. How much income is coming in? How much debt do you owe? The sad fact is most graduates actually have 5 student loans, right? You got one your freshman year, your sophomore year, your junior year, your senior year, maybe a 5th year or summer semester. And so you need to track all your loans down, lay them out. Is your contact information updated? Like, are you actually receiving your bills? Because chances are you don't live in the same place you lived your freshman year. You probably moved, you got a house or an apartment you're renting now. Like, don't use your school email address because that will get shut off like after you leave school. Like these are all things because then people don't even realize they're having to pay these bills. So let's take a minute. Let's lay it all out, get organized, because then we can have real conversations about the actual next step. Do we need to budget better and cut our expenses? Do we need to earn more? Do we need to change repayment plans based on what's coming in? There's a lot of options, but we can't even make that decision until we lay everything out, get it organized, and really see what you have going on.
That's really great advice. So tell me about the college investor.
Yeah, so I started this, over a decade ago. I wanted to teach people how to invest. And I wanted to talk about like how to make money and earn money and have your money grow for you until I encountered my own battle with my student loan servicer. Like I said, I love to rag on them as well, where they messed up my payments and my auto payment didn't get credited right. And then they tried to say I was late. And so what does a good blogger do, right? You write about it. And you publicly shame these companies. And so I did that. And it was like my first viral article on the College Investor. And I have all these comments. And I think the article probably has over 1,000 comments today. Same thing. Me too. Like my loan servicer is messing it up. And it was a very light bulb moment to me that, I need to help people get out of student loan debt so that I can get them to the point where we can talk about the things that will really help them grow wealth and invest for the future. So I started learning a lot more about student loans, not just for my situation, but for everybody, writing about it, helping people, and really transformed our mission to help people get out of student loan debt so I can get you to start investing and building wealth as early as possible. And that's what we've been doing now for the last 10 years.
Incredible. Love your site. Love what you're doing. This has been incredibly eye-opening 30 minutes because it actually surprised me. I learned so much about student loans today. So thank you so much, Robert.
Hey, thanks so much for having me. I appreciate you getting up early and having this conversation.
No, you got up early. I'm just finishing my day.
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
All right, Robert. Thank you so much. And we'll talk to you again.
Thank you.
Bye now.